Creo que Luis Millán de... ha puesto en marcha, junto con otras 15 personas, una operación humanitaria para ir hasta Ucrania y han organizado una expedición muy bien organizada con dos ONGs que ya tienen experiencia, sobre todo en África. Una de ellas se llama Policía Amigo y la otra ONG es Asociación para el Cuidado de la Infancia. Y con ambas ONGs han organizado una misión por la cual van a salir desde España, desde Madrid, 16 personas con 5 furgonetas y con un autobús mañana por la mañana. Salen hacia la frontera de Ucrania en Moldavia, van hasta la ciudad de Breni y en la ciudad de Breni, que es una ciudad fronteriza, van a llevar y entregar allí 6.000 kilos de ayuda humanitaria, medicinas, todo tipo de insumos de primera necesidad, alimentos, etcétera. Y el compañero lo que nos ha dicho también es que la operación incluye que al regreso esas 5 furgonetas y el autobús vienen cargados con 71 refugiados que se traen de allí. Entonces, bueno, queríamos informaros de... Sotermund. Luis, con Joaquín, con el secretario general, acordamos informar al Congreso de esto. La Junta Directiva de Sotermund ha tomado una decisión de urgencia anoche y vamos a hacer un aporte en nombre de toda la USO de Sotermund de 1.500 euros para apoyar esta misión, y también queremos que todos individualmente, y os pedimos, tengáis el compromiso de hacer una aportación monetaria que irá destinada directamente a este fondo. A estos efectos, se han colocado en el exterior de la sala a la salida 2 urnas para que por favor depositéis las monedas que queráis. Vamos a pasar también una circular online por si alguien quiere hacer alguna transferencia a Sotermund. Lamentablemente no tenemos un sistema de Bizum ahora para hacerlo rápido, pero sí pondremos la cuenta de Sotermund a todas las organizaciones por si alguien no tiene efectivo ahora y puede hacer una donación mayor, ¿de acuerdo? Bueno, era informar de eso y agradecer que nos permitáis la moción, y muchas gracias a Luis y a la USO.
Gracias. Muchas gracias. Bien, antes de empezar el último bloque de debate y votación de las resoluciones especiales, querríamos transmitir el saludo a todos los compañeros y compañeras que han iniciado el conectarse a nuestros canales de YouTube, porque hemos iniciado la retransmisión en directo de esta finalización, esta clausura de nuestro Congreso Confederal, con lo cual Un saludo muy afectuoso para todos aquellos y aquellas que estáis conectados y nos veis en directo por streaming y por nuestro canal YouTube. Ahora pasamos la palabra a la Comisión de Ponencias para que nos explique la presentación de las resoluciones especiales.
Buenos días, es muy sencillo, muchos ya lo conocéis. Desde la Comisión de Ponencias se presentará la resolución especial y la persona que va a defenderla y llevar a cabo la votación. Pido a quienes vayan a defender las resoluciones especiales, tanto las que proponen las organizaciones como las que proponemos la Comisión de Ponencias, estamos todos sentados, estén preparados para hacer esto lo más ágil posible. Empezamos con la resolución especial que propuso la Federación de Industria de Móviles por una transición ecológica justa y que garantice la actividad industrial
by the Federation of Industry, which title is for a fair ecological transition that guarantees industrial activity and employment. Pedro Ayón is going to present this resolution.
También en la Unión Europea, nosotros que también estamos en la Federación de Industria Europea, en Industrial Europe, precisamente porque probablemente es de los temas de más contenido y más potentes que se están debatiendo y que tenemos que darle soporte en todo momento, ¿no? Como bien sabéis, se va hacia un modelo económico, se tiene que tender hacia un modelo económico sostenible, y aquí pues está el eterno dilema, ¿no?, de que sea de una manera, que la transición sea de una manera justa. Cuando decimos que sea de una manera justa significa que esos cambios que tendremos que acometer en las diferentes industrias, pues que se hagan sin que haya ninguna repercusión negativa en cuanto al empleo y la calidad de vida, en este caso de las personas. Bueno, ahí está el Pacto Verde, año 2019, donde ya establece una serie de elementos y bueno, finalmente lo que se pretende es ir hacia una energía limpia, hacia una industria sostenible, como decía anteriormente, hacia una movilidad sostenible y también hacia la eliminación de la contaminación. Probablemente esto en la industria nos va a generar bastantes consecuencias, no solo en lo que significa las energías, que se tiene que ir hacia energías renovables, sino en la fabricación de las materias primas y en la fabricación en muchos sectores, como puede ser el sector del automóvil, donde hay que acometer una reestructuración de pasar de vehículos de combustión interna a vehículos eléctricos. Por tanto, siendo como somos el segundo país en Europa de fabricación de vehículos y el primero de fabricación de vehículos industriales, pues esto va a tener una trascendencia tremenda, ¿no? Por tanto, la Federación de Industria hemos creído que era una resolución muy interesante que venía que la pudiéramos votar en este Congreso. Y yo, sin más preámbulos, pasaría a leerla, que creo que es lo que hay que hacer, ¿no? La Federación de Industria de USO es consciente del impacto que tiene el cambio climático y de sus consecuencias medioambientales y sociales que con toda seguridad pueden afectar a la calidad de vida de las generaciones presentes y futuras, del conjunto de la ciudadanía en general y de las personas trabajadoras en particular. De este modo, considerando que nuestras sociedades están inmersas en un proceso de transición ecológica hacia un nuevo modelo económico renovable, sostenible y libre de emisiones de gases de invernadero, que trata de abandonar el uso de materias primas y combustibles de origen fósil, sustituyéndolas por otras menos contaminantes, en cumplimiento del Acuerdo de París de 2015 sobre el cambio climático, que tiene su desarrollo en España, entre otras estrategias, a través del Plan Integrado de Energía y Clima para conseguir la neutralidad climática. Y ante un proceso de transición entre ambos modelos que, entre otros impactos, representa un cambio disruptivo en el paradigma industrial de nuestro país, el conjunto de la USO tiene que jugar un papel activo, solvente y con capacidad de propuesta. Que de otra parte, en los próximos años afrontaremos retos de gran calado, como la descarbonización del transporte, que conllevará el proceso de cambio industrial.
On the other hand, in the coming years, we will face major challenges such as the decarbonization of transport, which will entail the process of industrial change to vehicles, trains, boats, etc., to less polluting vehicles, trains, ships, and aircraft, and the development of the necessary infrastructures, a new, more sustainable and inclusive mobility model, the necessary energy refurbishment of buildings and homes. More than half of them are over 40 years old, including public facilities and buildings. On the other hand, we observe how the steps that are being taken in this direction are having negative repercussions in other sectors as a consequence of the shortage of raw materials and exorbitant energy costs, which we must also take into account. This is the case of the power-intensive industries. From USO, we must raise our voices as we see that the cost of energy is causing very serious problems to all of them, as they are going to be forced to suspend their production, knowing in advance that they will incur losses. Today, we can confirm that industrial production costs have tripled as a result of energy costs. Therefore, the 12th Confederal Congress of USO resolves to adopt the following demands. First of all, to modify the current linear and open model of consumption of natural resources into a circular and closed model where products are designed to be reused or transformed into new ones. Second, to advance towards a more sustainable and environmentally friendly production model, developing the bioeconomy as a source of alternative products, and also move towards a more sustainable and more ecological agriculture and animal husbandry model. Likewise, the adaptation to the circular economy of different manufacturing industries, such as the timber industry, must be promoted, which together with other measures will make the green transformation of existing jobs possible. Then advocate that the European institutions give a global and coordinated response and promote structural changes. In this respect, USO demands that Spain sets up strategic gas reserves, improves its negotiating capacity vis-à-vis large suppliers, reviews the CO2 markets to reduce the impact of speculation, and in general, the regulatory framework to be able to act on price volatility. While the above is happening, we urge the government through the relevant ministries to take action against the energy lobby and propose modifications to the European wholesale markets, thus avoiding unfair and disproportionate daily sales prices as a temporary measure to decouple the price of electricity from the cost of gas. We support the campaign of the European Federation Industrial Europe, no worker can be left behind. It is essential to go further. It must be a period of transition, but it must also be fair to all people, especially to the weakest link in the labor chain, the workers in companies and industrial sectors, as well as all the other affected sectors. Learning from past mistakes. USO supports the generation of new industrial processes that incorporate investments for technological adaptation and provide the necessary training and skills to protect jobs and the quality of life of current and future workers. 7, in order to address all these aspects, the union as a whole needs to prepare itself to face negotiations both at the industrial and company level and to establish the necessary coordination measures between all the territorial and sectoral organizations with the aim of ensuring that the impact of these changes does not destroy jobs, ensuring effective planning for a fair transition. We need to try everything possible to prevent negative repercussions on jobs. As a result, this is the resolution which I hope you will vote in favor. I think it is a very important topic. Indeed, in the previous Congress, we already set up a specific department responsible for these issues. We very often have meetings with the ministry, and we're working on it, working hard. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pedro. Now I'm going to give the floor to the Comisión de Ponencias. So we accept the special resolution proposed by the Federation of Industry, and we ask you please to vote in favor. So we're going to start voting on this first special resolution. Please move on to the special resolutions part. Whenever you're ready. So whenever we're ready, we can show the results. 100% voted in favor of the special resolution presented by the Industry Federation of USO. I know we're asking you to make a special effort on this last day, but please stick to the timetable because we do have the documents of the special regulations among your documents. You were sent the special resolutions well on time, in due time. You have had time to read them. So we would like to ask now to the people who come to present the resolution. We ask them to explain their resolution. It's not necessary to read it because you all have had the opportunity to read it. So let's move on to the second special resolution. It is the proposal made by the Federation of Services to the citizens, and the title is the government must put an end to the fraud in public administration against a double scale of temp work in public and private employment. As Sarah told you, the Federation of Services to Citizens have developed a special resolution against the double scale of temp work in public and private employment. The governments must curb fraud against the law in public administrations. As you all know, there is a big difference between private companies and public administration. In the The Article 15 of the Statutes of Workers is systematically applied to the private sector, to private corporations, but in the public administration, they do not apply those principles to all their public employers. They seem to forget the principles of legal certainty, job stability, and justice. For all these reasons, the plenary session of the 12th Confederal Congress of USO decides that all the workers, whether they're in the private sector or in the public sector, must be equally covered and protected by the law against abuses, whether they work for a private company or for a public administration. Secondly, there can't be different treatments of workers from both backgrounds. Their rights should be the same, and the violation of these rights should be dealt with and punished in the same way. And eventually, we must say to all political parties that we cannot accept the abuse of temp work in public administrations. It is politically unethical, but it is unfair and illegal in addition. So we ask you to vote for this resolution. Thank you very much. So the Commission de Ponencias accepts the proposal made by the Federation of Services to Citizens, and we ask the plenary session of the Congress to vote in favor of this resolution. So we are going to vote for this second special resolution. The vote is open. Go ahead. Go ahead. You may vote now. We will show the results. So it is approved unanimously. 100% of votes in favor. Let's move on to the third proposal of special resolution. So USO Cantabria proposes the following special resolution for an alternative model of trade union participation in the current social dialogue. It should be open, plural, and democratic. So Mercedes Martinez Ubimendi will present this resolution. Good morning, dear colleagues. We have seen that all the electoral standards have consecrated or strengthened the privileges of the so-called legitimate trade unions, legitimately representative trade unions. They can choose officials, election officials. They can decide when they convene trade union elections. But the trade unions in the autonomous communities can do that too, but USO cannot, even though we may have more delegates. So we have taken legal action against that. We have won many of those legal actions, but in most cases, they ended up changing the law. So USO is carrying out a campaign together with other trade union organizations in the so-called plural trade union participation. We regret that the lack of trade union democracy is still a reality. USO has more than 10% of representativeness in many communities, many autonomous communities, but it is systematically excluded from social dialogue. We're institutionally blackmailed by the two dominant trade unions. So what we propose to this Confederal Congress, we propose that they should decide to update and to keep sustaining the claims that USO has been making for 30 years by supporting the platform for the regeneration of a more plural, open, and democratic social dialogue. We want the inclusion of representative trade unions as from 5% of representation. We want the removal of the current discrimination. In the different autonomous communities, there should be a clear definition of representative trade union. And also in the negotiation institutional framework of that territory. We need a non-biased system of appointment of electoral officials. We need to secure the transparency, the publicity. We need to be able to take part in the transparency and publicity. We need to make systematic the public resources given by public administrations to social agents. The 12th Confederal Congress of USO asks to develop and update the campaign for the regeneration of the trade union situation in Spain. We need to give an impulse to this campaign outside our trade union through this trade union platform. And it is to the achievement of these goals that we ask you to vote for the achievement of this goal that we ask you to vote. So, please keep quiet in the room. There is an echo. Well, it is a traditional position that USO has always been keeping, so we ask you to vote in favor of this special resolution. Please vote for this third special resolution. Very well. So 100% vote in favor. Have voted in favor. So it is unanimously adopted. Let's move on to the fourth special resolution.
Good morning to everyone. I'm 30 years old and come from Nicaragua. In 2018, we had the upsurge in the struggle against the privatization of Social Security. I had to emigrate to Spain because I was persecuted by the police for having taken part in the peaceful demonstrations that were severely repressed with over 200 people dead. So I came here to be a lawyer, as I had learned. But we had many difficulties because I wasn't given a license to work, nor political asylum. But it was a friend that helped me to work as a temporary person, temporary staff in very difficult working conditions without rest, treated basically as a slave by the bosses. And I didn't even have a contract. My mental health was deteriorating. I even decided to go back home, despite the danger that that entailed for me. But my situation here was terrible. As Roberto, Katia also works caring for an older person. Or Ebeser Lanon, another example, who also died in difficult conditions, or Martina, who was also fallen into the grasp of the prostitution networks. These are the type of difficulties that migrant peoples have in our countries, which of course make it very difficult to become integrated. More than 1,700 people died trying to get here. It's a very dangerous trip for terrible conditions with the mafias involved. Spain is one of the countries that has almost most exploitation of migrants, and the asylum policies are too slow. There are no work permits, so many people who had fled their own country now have to work here without social security or any papers to avoid social exclusion and poverty in the last few years. We've had many examples of migrants working in the agricultural sector and then after an accident abandoned at the doors of hospitals. That is why that in this Congress we resolved to break the stigma against immigrants. These people flee their country seeking better futures without persecution and in freedom, and they are a positive contribution to a country, both economically and culturally, increasing innovation, consumption. It does not reduce salaries and increase productivity. It's important to know firsthand the problems of migrants. This group suffers from labor exploitation with huge timetables without protection and being treated as lower people through xenophobic attitudes. We need asylum and migratory policies that are more efficient to avoid the exploitation of the migrants and to make easier all the formalities so that they can work properly in Spain with safety and protection, to increase labor inspectorate to protect immigrants in their working places, and if necessary, impose sanctions so that there is no impunity by the employers. We have to join as trade unions the immigrant groups to help protect them and organize themselves as a trade union to have their own representatives in their working centers and improve their conditions of work. In the vast majority of places, they do not have any representation. We, of course, accept the special resolution concerning this statement. So we ask you to vote in favor of what we just heard. Okay, we can stop now. Have it all voted? The fourth resolution has been unanimously approved. Next, there are two organizations, the Service Federation and the Private Security Federation, which have similar difficulties, and they present this single representation concerning intensive working conditions in private security. So please be brief. Will you introduce the resolutions? No need to read them because we don't have much time left. Good morning. Yes, I'll try to summarize. But I would like to thank the opportunity to defend this special resolution that we have jointly presented and drafted. There are three aims. to guarantee the salary of workers, to avoid fiscal fraud by companies, and thirdly, perhaps the most important, to guarantee the jobs of so many friends which are now losing them because of bad management. In Spain, it's not illegal to present yourself and lose money, as it were, for a job. A company can, for instance, be proposing with cost lower than a decent wage for workers. And if a company loses money, then it doesn't pay correctly to the workers, doesn't pay social security contributions, it doesn't fulfill all the administrative requirements for the public procurement to which they made an offer or a bid. And indeed, there's a fraud of social security of about 500 million euros just from companies of private security. Each time that there is a public procurement in which the bid is at a loss, we know that there is a boss that is cheating because he's not going to pay workers, he's not going to pay social security contributions, that he uses that money abroad. And then they go bankrupt. And there are many, many companies that have closed in this type of context and with those type of practices. So you have the resolution, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I would like to read a letter, the Bauman letter, that was sent by a military engineer of France to the war minister of Louis XIV, the king of France and Navarre, 1683. And the letter says, in the last few years, there are some works that have not been finished and won't finish because of the confusion of the lowering in standards, which means that only you have immigrants and young people being abused and the managers have wrong procedures. So all the works are delayed because of those cuts are not even effective. So it's a bit like a shipwreck, So it means that they're not paying proper wages, they take people without skills, delay things, and then of course trying to ask for help from the kingdom. So this is not the right way of doing things. We have to change things, and in the name of God, please re-establish good faith and give works to a company that does things properly. That would be, in the end, the cheapest and more efficient solution. This was a letter that dates back from 1683. So, well, I wonder how many things have changed since then. There are new laws, of course, but the same problem keeps propping up. There's unscrupulous employers, administrations and politicians that get, underhand commissions, and in the end, workers who have to work in terrible working conditions for very low wages. And that is why from the Service Federation and Private Security Federation asked to vote in favor of our resolution. The Resolution Commission, of course, accepts this proposal and requests the plenary to vote in favor. Yes, you can now go and vote on this which is that was accepted, and then we'll have the next one that will be the new social contract. No, sorry, it's not this. It's not the social contract. Eh? No. We have to. Just a second. Yes, there was a mistake here. Just a second. Yes, we have to vote for the one you just heard, the one about private security and service federations, not about the new social contract. Will come later. Don't worry. Yes, now it's a correct one. It's number 5, special resolution, which is public and private contracts in those intensive working sectors. So that's the one, is number 5. Sorry, it's not number 5, in fact. It's the one that number 8 would have been. Okay, we can finish now and see the results. So, another resolution proposed by the different federations, Castilla and León, is repopulation and restructuring in the emptied Spain. Federico Laguna. Go ahead. Hello. It is the first time that I'm taking part in this trade union congress. And many people have. Thank you for their participation. I would like to explain what it is for me, the USO family, by thinking, institutionally speaking, Julio Salazar, read in 2010, I was welcome, having previously worked in other trade unions. And I would like to thank all of the other workers of USO for the help that they've always given us. Even knowing that the trade union is not such a wealthy one, even though it's a very representative one. So since 2010, I've been working within USO. Thank you for having welcomed me, Julio, and also all the others. As well, Maite Rosas, who helped me a lot, and all the other friends. Right, now to the point. From Castilla y León, which, as you know, is one of the largest regions in Europe, and yet has a very difficult social, economic, and labor situation. That is to say, what the so-called emptied or hollowed out Spain. I come from Soria province, which unfortunately is, if you like, zero level as far as population is concerned. Together with Aragon, Teruel, Cuenca, the Iberian Celtic part, Guadalajara, so imagine this emptied space. Teruel, my own provinces are very big, geographically speaking, sometimes even bigger than autonomous communities themselves. For instance, the province of Soria is very, very, very large. I'm sorry, please, silence in the room. Imagine that the situation wherein, I don't know, Euskadi, with a province larger than an autonomous community, for instance, Navarra. So there's a special number that starting from which one considers that the place has been emptied out, 10 inhabitants per square meter. That's a European standard. But in fact, that is something that happens in many of our provinces, certainly Soria. In some territories, the population density is less than 1 inhabitant per square kilometer. Now, little by little, there is an awareness that we have to do something against this, to have proper policies, to do something. But in the end, it was the social movements like Teruel Existe or Milana Bonita and all other social movements, or Ya, for instance. Those are the movements that have put on the table the need for new policies, for political action, to try to change that very dire reality. I must say that many other parties were not very interested in changing things. Please, you have to finish because there's no more time. Perhaps parties were not interested because, there were very few MPs elected there. But we believe that our trade union, a humanist trade union such as USO, should take part in improving things. Working also in Castilla Leon. So let's hope that this special resolution proposal be accepted by all of you, so that we contribute to revert this very difficult reality that condemns many people to very difficult situations. 90% of municipalities in that region are not viable and might soon disappear. It's only a question of time. And unfortunately, that can be something that might happen elsewhere too. So please approve the resolution and take part in the solutions to that problem in order to build a future for us. The Resolutions Commission accepts the proposal from Castilla y León and asks for a positive approval. Let us go on to the vote. Very good. 100% unanimously approved. Next resolutions, this time from the Ponencias Commission. Marina de la Rocha will defend a special resolution concerning for trade union activity beyond the working area. And please be quick.
I'm going to read it because I wouldn't like to distort the meaning of the resolution. For trade union activism beyond the working life, the increase of the life expectancy in this all over the world, with our country being one of the longest living countries. So the increase in the life expectancy of the world's population, with our country being one of the longest living countries in the world, with 86 years for women and 82 for men. Second, the high unemployment of the Spanish population, especially among young people and those over 52 years of age, means that the working or salaried life is relatively short. In both cases, people have large periods of time to dispose of at their own convenience. Well, which they can use at their own convenience. The building up of USO from birth has been based on militant will and a more than generous dedication to the values and principles it stood for. Without this generous activism of hundreds and thousands of militants, the USO would not exist today. Our trade union model at the service of workers with problems and aspirations to improve their working conditions and at the service of sufficient wages for a dignified and decent livelihood still needs people who generously give up time to the service of the union to strengthen it and to make it also a bigger, more effective and efficient union in addressing and responding to the problems and aspirations of ordinary people, of working people, of those who live and work in our beloved Spain. 6, to live and grow old with dignity, trying to improve and leave this world a better place than when we entered it, is coherence and balance that enables us to have a healthy life. Activism comes from the depth of our heart, from our values and feelings. It fulfills us, turns us into beings of solidarity and therefore more human. For all these reasons and more, the 12th Confederal Congress of USO resolves and calls upon all union members, whether they are unemployed or retired, to give part of their free time voluntarily and generously for the purpose of serving the union, contributing, joining forces and willpower for a stronger, more effective and efficient USO in the defense of its members and workers in general. Many others before us have already done so. Our sincere gratitude is eternal. Granada, 30th of March 2022. I would like you to support this special resolution. And I hope I will be there to meet you at the 13th Confederal Congress. It will mean that we're still alive and we will have made progress towards building the future. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you. Thank you, Marina. The Commission of Papers asks you to vote in favor of this special resolution. So, dear colleagues, let's vote. Now, very well. The vote is closed. Thank you very much. Now, you will see on the screen the account number where you can make the donations that were mentioned by Javier de Vicente. You will see the account number appearing on the screen. The second special resolution proposed by the Commission of Papers for an emergency plan for youth employment and the unemployed over 45 years old. Good morning to you all. Given the request to be brief. I'm not going to read the resolution because I think you've all had the opportunity to read it at some point. I just would like to say in an introduction that USO has been observing, and it's been said several times in this Congress, the employment problems of two age groups in our country, the young and the unemployed over 45 years old. In 2021, youth unemployment was around 40%, and over 45 years, the unemployment rate was 41%. The Youth Guarantee Plan or the Incorporate plans have not been efficient in solving these problems. Many people in those age groups have been hard hit by the delaying of the age of their entrance in the labor market, with very serious mental health consequences. The number of suicides has dramatically increased. Those who are most affected are the women, the handicapped people, the migrants are those who belong to minority groups. So for all these reasons, the Congress believes that we need to adopt a plan to make sure that unemployment in these two age groups decreases. And we also need more people working in mental health, because we all know that there is a lack of healthcare professionals, mental health care professionals. We need an effective plan with measures that can contribute to decreasing poverty, solve the crisis, commit to providing more public housing that foster new contracts, young people in order to give them an opportunity in companies. And we also demand the fostering of collective bargaining to help those groups of people where we can find the highest number of temp work contracts. So we ask you to please vote in favor of this special resolution. As Ima said, the Commission of Papers asks you to vote for this resolution. Please, let's vote on this but last special resolution. Whenever you're ready. Go ahead, you may vote now. Let's close the vote. Let's see the results. The special resolution has been approved unanimously. The Commission of Papers proposes yet another special resolution. Please keep quiet. For a new social contract, and Javier de Vicente is responsible for presenting and promoting this resolution. Thank you very much, Sarah. So we will finish with this last resolution, where what we say is that the current economic model is not working, is not efficient. It has to be changed. Please be quiet in the room. It has to be changed at the service to favor the people, the citizens, and particularly in order to promote and defend the labor rights of the workers. We have seen a compounding of the inequalities and a lack of inclusion during the COVID period, the pandemic period. The conclusion is that the economic model is not efficient. It does not work. The economic model that was the object of the Washington Consensus has created an international financial system where the financial economy prevails over the productive economy. The large transnational corporations have supply chains which allow them to use low-cost labor force, very low-cost labor force, and this has an impact on the whole supply chain, producing, therefore, very negative effects in our so-called Western developed countries and all over the world. So what we do in this resolution is claim a powerful package of measures that goes against the current practices of international trade, which should be undertaken in a very close-knit coordination with the international trade union movement. This is a resolution that will be proposed in the forthcoming Global Congress of ITUC that will take place in November, and we want to make a binding proposal to multilateral institutions to reach a new European paradigm where profit does not come first, where what comes first is the rights of the people. And all this should be part of sustainable development. We know development has to be sustainable and fully respect or comply with the sustainable development goals of the 2030 agenda of the United Nations. We therefore ask you to support this last special resolution. So we can close the debate with this last special resolution, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank you all for the hard work you've been doing in writing those texts, and thank you very much for your work, especially since March 2020. I would like to thank our friends, our colleagues from the Papers Commission. Thank you very much. We are very happy to have such good colleagues with us. And I've been in the Papers Committee since the Valencia Congress. And it's going to be a pleasure for me to be with you. It has always been a pleasure for me to be with you in this Commission of Papers. Now let's move on to the vote on the last special resolution. As there was a mistake when we opened up this resolution, when you start voting, you may receive a message saying that you have already voted. Just disregard it. Whenever you're ready, you may vote. So whenever you're ready, we will close the vote and show the results. So 91.47% in favor and 1.83% abstentions. The last special resolution is adopted. So, dear friends, we're reaching the end almost of this Congress, and so we still have to vote to elect the confederal bodies of our trade union. So the 225,000 votes have been cast. They are telling me that the commission and papers should leave the table here, the chair. So we're trying to stick to the timetable. Thank you very much, dear commission and papers. As I was telling you, this is the last block of this Congress. And I was sharing the number of votes. We had 239 votes to elect the decision-making bodies of USO. 2025, 600 votes have been cast. So in favor, so no votes against. So the valid votes are 225,671 votes, no abstention, no vote against. It means that the candidacies proposed by the Confederal Executive Committee have obtained 100% of the valid votes. I will call you now. Confederal Safeguards Committee, chaired by Carlos Quiroz Borges, Vice President Arantxa Navarro Mazón, Secretary Laura Fernandez Morales. Please come up here. Economic Transparency Committee, chaired by Julio Salazar Moreno, Vice President Juan Antonio González Hinero, Secretary Rapporteur Lucia Nieto González. Now we have the Confederal Executive Committee, the Secretary of Social Policies, Equality Policies, and Training, Lourdes Pedrazuela Bern. International and Sustainable Development Secretariat, Carmen Alejandra Ortiz Martínez. Secretary of Communication and Project Management, Laura Esteves Fernández. Economy and Digitalization Secretariat, José Manuel González Cañete. José María, perdón. Secretariat of Trade Union Action and Employment, Sara García de las Heras. Organization and Territorial Development Department, David Díaz. And Joaquín Pérez da Silva, General Secretary. Congratulations, dear colleagues. A well-deserved recognition for your efforts and your work during these last years. We wish you strength and courage, especially to the new people. Congratulations, and let's build the future with USO, dear colleagues. Well, I want to start thanking you, thanking all those of you who have been with us at the opening of the Congress. I would like to thank also those who are with us online and who have not been able to join us physically. But we have you in our hearts. And I would like to thank also the chairing table for their excellent work.
Thank you for all the logistical work as well, for having done things very efficiently and with love. And always having to solve things at the last minute. You have to improvise things sometimes. You know, for instance, you had to get some water at the last possible minute. So I would like to thank you as well, all the teams, all the Confederation, everyone working behind the lines. I think that you've been doing things excellently well. Things have been even better than expected. And of course, thank you very much to USO Andalusia, USO Granada, the technicians, the people working here in the Congress Center, all the staff. Thank you very much indeed. So thank you to all of you for all the work. And of course, I would like to start this closing of the Congress by joining all the expression of solidarity with the Ukrainian people that our union has already started, including that project that we've heard, but also in solidarity with all the people suffering from wars, dictatorship, totalitarianism, lack of freedom or repression. 4 years and 4 months ago, more or less, we had a previous Confederal Congress and Cooley left the General Secretariat. There were other changes taking place as well. But apart from that change, the whole organization was evolving as well. Today has been a very good day also to recognize as well all the work of all the trade unions that I, taken up the work in the second generation, as it were, through your activities, through your concern, for the people that take up the struggle once again. This is why we are such a good trade union. And also, of course, Carmen, Nuria, others, also Javier, 1,000 thanks and greetings for all the work that you have done for our trade union. And of course, thank you very much to the new leaders, to the new members of the different bodies, teams and commissions. And I'm sure that they will be working very good for building the future of our organization. This Congress has been a Congress of cohesion, strengthening, facing the future, building the future. Our country, as the planet, is a difficult time And have been many old policies that went the wrong way, that degraded employment, increased inequalities, and even put into question the system of social protection. So we have to face up to all of this. And our texts and resolutions make clear what has to be done. Because there are many issues, transition, energy, so on and so forth, that will affect the way we work. And indeed, the jobs. All the texts that have been approved are very relevant. So all the data is up to date. APC says that we're going to get to inflation in almost 10%, 9.2. Which also means that the purchasing power of working people is diminishing and our demands even more relevant than at any other time. So we're asked for specific policy. We don't like rhetorical answers. Because there are a lot of people who have difficulties in setting up a family because they don't have an option of having some labor or social security, safety, and also people who are of a certain age dismissed, laid off, or thinking that because they just get some subsidies, that's all you can do for them. So we have to take on board all the consequences of the crisis. There is indeed a lot of people who are unemployed for a very long time that cannot go back into the labor market. And very often trade unions don't think enough about them, whereas we as USO do. So we also have to say that the labor reform has not been all that good, that we have to improve it. We have lost a lot of rights that we had in the previous times. Very often, the European Union institutions are used as an excuse for not doing the right thing here in Spain. It's terrible, for instance, that young people today in Spain cannot even imagine they will have a proper retirement or a pension, or it's terrible that someone of 30-year-old cannot pay for their rent. And others that are waiting for ages until they get some sort of help. I think our Congress is facing up to all these situations. You bet for a fair society. That's what we're doing as trade unionists, to improve people's lives. And also to improve one of the most important things, which is work itself. And of course, we're going to take part in campaigns to increase membership and in trade union elections. I think all of us have an honest, pluralist, independent trade unionism, with a true commitment and working for the working class in our country. And we should be proud of ourselves. Not for being the largest or not the largest, but for being the best trade union in this country. With satisfaction, we have a mandate that will help us grow. We have an organization that can progress. We have to be brave because many difficulties are waiting in the future. And we continue working with honesty, cohesive from end to end, great unity. So together in this wonderful project that is the Unión Sindical Obrera. Thank you very much. Long live our membership and long live the USO. I remind you that the Congress has not yet finished, so just a second. Please do not leave. Do not leave yet. In fact, please do sit down. Remember that the Congress has not yet finished. We still have an extra video. So ready to start. The last years have shown that employment is an engine of development without which working people cannot have a life project. For a pact of quality employment, eliminating the loss of rights of the labor reforms 2010, 2012, and 2021. Against precariousness, excessive temporary employment, and discrimination between subcontractors and main company. We must strengthen the labor inspectorate to encourage the fight against fraud and abuse in hiring. Let us promote active employment policies for the long-term unemployment for young people. That the revaluation SMI must include the increases of the consumer price index. We demand the regulation of concerning digital disconnection, as well as the recognition of teleworking as workers' rights. We'll face many challenges in the next 4 years. The health crisis has worsened social inequalities and underline the need to live in dignity. Public procurement should not put workers and services at risk by choosing the lowest price. We defend basic rights in public administrations for an industrial policy that generates quality jobs. No cut or privatization of the public pension system. Housing is not a privilege, it is a right. We only have one planet and must protect it. Transition to a sustainable model must be fair to workers, so that they are not again the ones most harmed. More measures to adapt to climate change in companies and to promote sustainable production sectors. We are committed to renewable energies and greater investment in research, development, and innovation. For a fair digital transition and against the digital divide. Despite significant progress in equality in recent years, we still have a long way to go. Let's eliminate labor inequalities, gender discrimination, and women's precariousness through collective bargaining and equality plans. For the ratification of ILO Convention 189 in favor of domestic workers, that the right to care for dependent parents does become a reality. For the total reconciliation of work and personal life, let us fight against gender violence through education and awareness raising. For young people to have a decent life project, against discrimination against LGBT plus people, people with disabilities and immigrants. So that all working people are represented in trade unions. We need a democratic trade unionism where all options are considered. We need a more plural, more participatory, more transparent, more supported trade unionism, and the new law on trade union freedom, which instead of denigrating its name like the current one, gives it prestige, and it is a law of and for the 21st century, for a trade union representation percentage equal to that of the political parties. That the social dialogue reflects the real plurality of trade union organizations. Education is essential for the development of societies and people. For a state educational agreement without ideological interference, so that the administrations guarantee the right to education. We are committed to the employability of young people by promoting dual vocational training. Educational centers must have the economic, material, and human resources to attend students with special educational needs. for a university oriented towards getting quality jobs. We're still in the midst of a pandemic that has changed our lives. Health is fundamental in all areas, including in our workplaces. For quality public health care, also in rural and depopulated areas. For the maintenance of health coverage for immigrants, the national health system must be publicly managed. Mental health care be a clear priority, providing resources for public health care. To eliminate precarious contracts in the health and care sector, against accidents at work, and for investments in risk prevention. For COVID-19 and all its consequences be considered as an occupational disease for all workers in all sectors. Very well. Having seen this video, we are reaching the end of the Congress. But before leaving, I would like to thank you all for your excellent behavior, for your help in numerous occasions, for your cooperation with the Bureau, as well as all the staff, the organization people. And thank you for all the patience that you've had with us, having heard me so often, and for updating things on the go. So thank you wholeheartedly. Thank you very much for having made things easier for us. Thanks to all those who have been working with me, helping me. And also, thank you very much to the order service, security service, Binganillo, Esther, and also those who have helped us carry out things, especially during the technical vote, the app, all the technical work that is done in the background, but it is essential. So I chaired in this first digital Congress, and I've been in the first line. As it has been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you very much to you all. A good trip back home, and long live the USO.